Howdy and hello everyone, I'm the Coaster Critic and you're the viewer. And today we'll be talking about my second favorite coaster. My favorite coaster when it's dueling. Twisted Colossus, also known as Sus Coaster. I'm very aware that's almost a dead meme at this point, but I don't care. It's easier to say than Twisted Colossus most of the time, so I just call it that sometimes, so deal with it. And today we are going to be looking through the history of Twisted Colossus, formerly Colossus, and seeing what it went through to get to this point. And of course, doing my usual Coaster Critic antidotes throughout the way, because I can't explain information like this for that long. Anyway, let's get started. It all started way back in the 70s, a very good time for theme parks in general. Everyone had sort of realized, oh my god, Walt Disney did a thing, and they just all went, I want to copy that thing that Walt did because what Walt did was pretty cool that one time, 20 years later. This of course led to parks like Six Flags Over Texas, the Great America Parks, and of course, well, I mean, like, it wasn't really a main effect of it, but the boom in theme parks basically just caused this as well. Magic Mountain. Magic Mountain was pretty much just a mistake. Because of the area of Valencia being so freaking popular, Newhall Land & Farming, a land-owning company? Yeah, land-owning company owned this park. And SeaWorld, surprisingly, you would never see SeaWorld owning this park at once. Maybe because it doesn't look anything like a SeaWorld park in just its general rides and the way it's kept, lighting, but also because there is no animal focus to this park. But, you know, SeaWorld dropped out pretty early on. So the park opened to, it was a pretty weird first year. But after some additions, as well as Revolution being the first ever coaster in the world to have a vertical loop, a modern vertical loop, just a few weeks ahead of Cedar Point's Corkscrew, because Cedar Point is a seasonal park, while Magic Mountain is also technically, was at the time technically a seasonal park. So this meant that they could claim that record as the first ever coaster to feature a modern vertical loop. So after this, because Magic Mountain was now getting some national attention, they decided, because the trend for the 70s was basically just dueling wooden coasters that were white. I'm not even joking, like, seriously. Why was this a trend all of a sudden? Magic Mountain decided they wanted to be the top dog in this white dueling wooden coaster battle, and decided that they would build Colossus, the world's tallest roller coaster, and also the world's tallest wooden coaster, and also the world's tallest dueling coaster. I'm like, they didn't say these records, but that's basically what it was, and if you go by today's standards, you know Six Flags would have said that. Colossus opened on June 29th, 1978, right at the tail end of the 70s. This made Magic Mountain a top spot for just general people around the world. They wanted to ride Colossus, and for most people, it was worth it. I mean, like, by today's standards, Colossus, if a park added that today, not only would we be laughing at them because it would basically look like a dinosaur skeleton in a museum, but if someone added this coaster today, everyone would say that it had terrible pacing, because these kind of coasters had terrible pacing for most of the ride. Look at American Eagle. That freaking helix goes on for ages. Like, you'd be 60 by the time you got off the ride, and you got on when you were 30. After all of this, Colossus pretty much just stayed as it was. Eventually it got new trains, and it was kind of intruded on in its land because Goliath was, like, right there. Like, seriously, could you really not have put Goliath in another spot? Or, better idea, just not build Goliath in general. Then, after Goliath was added, they added Scream once again right next to Colossus, which I think is just, like, Scream really easily could have just gone in, like, the spot of Riddler's Revenge, or once again, just not built Scream in general, maybe put a nice, like, flat ride there, because the park really needs flat rides. And plus, you'd be killing two birds with one stone by putting Scream in Riddler's Revenge. You'd be getting rid of Scream's parking lot setting, and you'd be getting rid of Riddler's Revenge. It's a win-win. And after the park was closed because Six Flags just couldn't stop spending, like, they had way too much debt, and they wanted to sell off Magic Mountain because, yeah, why not sell off your best park? That would be a good idea. And then came 2014. At this point, Colossus had gained many siblings, as you'd call them in a park. I mean, like, I'm not the one making this comparison. Magic Mountain was literally making comparisons of Flashback, a ride that, oddly enough, is already removed, being a new birth in the Magic Mountain family, so I'm basically just going by the rules here. Colossus was getting pretty old. At this point, it was 36 years old. 36! And Magic Mountain also was owned by Six Flags at this time. So, Six Flags, being Six Flags in the 2010s, were doing their RMC stuff. RMC, for those of you who don't know, is an absolute legend of a company. What they did at this time, and still do to this day, is they will take old wooden coasters that are either praised and legendary but are pretty rough or pretty old, or terrible wooden coasters that no one liked in the first place, Rattler, and they just take them, make them 10 times better, and make them the best coasters in the park. And Six Flags had already done this to Medusa at Six Flags Mexico, New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas, and Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. And Six Flags was like, I see, we've got Colossus over here, we've got RMC right here, they're doing wonders to our old wooden coasters. Why don't we take RMC and make them do a dueling hybrid coaster? So, Six Flags made the sad announcement that Colossus would be closing, and people did not take this well. People, I'm like, not the RMC treatment wasn't that well known at this time, and like people knew, coaster enthusiasts knew it was a thing, but most of the time at this point it still wasn't like the main thing. Like when you close a wooden coaster, are they gonna do the RMC treatment? Are they gonna do it? At this point, no one was like that. People thought, oh yeah, Colossus is closing, it's closing forever. Come next year, it's gonna be a flat plot of where a 36-year-old coaster used to sit. People thought that was gonna happen. And some people even tried to petition to make Colossus a landmark, so that way Six Flags couldn't tear it down. Very obviously that's gonna go through considering the state of it right now, Twisted Sus coaster. So Colossus closed on August 16th, 2014. And because of all of the outrage from this closing, Six Flags was like, oh frick, we gotta release this announcement right now. So they released the announcement for the one, the only, Twisted Colossus. Twisted Colossus was not just your normal dueling coaster. Not only did it not have the usual dueling wooden, or in this case hybrid coaster format, where it would go down and drop, have a little speedy thing, then go up, go extremely slow around a corner, or in American Eagle's case, a 30-year-long helix, then come back down and do another speedy bit, come back up, do that exact same again, they just do that all around, and just, that was pretty much it. Twisted Colossus would maintain speed throughout the entire ride, would go through 2 inversions and multiple airtime moments. I would also like to mention Magic Mountain and pretty much the entire state of California had a pretty large airtime lag. I'm like, there was there were a lot of coasters that had airtime in them, but there was not a single ride that was like, oh yeah, this thing gives some great airtime. And then Twisted Colossus got announced, and people were like, oh my god, we're finally gonna get some airtime in this place, finally! The people were actually pretty happy about this announcement, considering all the backlash compared to when Colossus closed. And it would not be just your average dueling coaster, as I said previously, because this one would be a Mobius loop. A Mobius loop is basically, when you get done with one slide, you don't go back to the station, and another point, there just aren't two stations, it's all one ride. What you do is you would go up, go through the layout, come back around, and go and start right back where you started, but on the other track. However, Mobius at the time had a flaw to it, being that the ride-ops in the station had to be really quick in order to make it so this ride dueled. Because if Twisted Colossus didn't duel, you wouldn't get the full experience, and unfortunately that's what the ops do a lot now. That's my only gripe about Twisted Colossus. They just never want to duel. But what they do is they'd have to go really fast. Like, they'd have to check those restraints fast. You can hear them in the station. They're like a freaking auctioneer in there. They're saying 3, 4, 18, 3, 4, 18, 3, 4, 18, 3, 4, 18, just 3, just 3, just 3, just 3, just 3, just 3. It's all clear, station stand clear. Yeah, they go pretty fast in that freaking station. Now, with Twisted Colossus, not only was it a Mobius, not only did it maintain its speed, but of course it would also be one of the best rides, and assuming X2 is how I like X2, which is as like my number 4 spot in the park, it would be the best coaster in the park, also assuming you don't like Tatsu as much as the number 1 spot. I always think it's number 2. Which means Twisted Colossus would certainly be a good coaster. So now, let's look through the layout. You start off with a turn out of the station, where you then will kind of sit there, as you then reach some tire drives, and you go next to the far inferior Goliath. And then you go through some bunny hops. These bunny hops, surprisingly, provide some pretty good, like, not airtime, full-on airtime, but like some nice little pops to get you ready for the oncoming ride. And then you go through the chain lift that just kind of... It's pretty much the only bad section of this ride. The chain lift just kind of kills every sort of, like, feeling you get. But unlike in this POV, if the green train is dueling with you, or if you're dueling with the blue train on the other side, then you will be getting a nice experience where you can see the other train once you reach the top of the lift hill. And then, as you crest the lift hill, you then get a good look at that 80-degree drop, then you get a nice pop of airtime as you're going down, get another pop of airtime at a very nice speed hill, and then go over another hill leading you into the first curve. Then into the high 5 element that isn't as whippy on the blue side, then into another drop that provides you some good airtime. Another airtime moment, and into the best moment of airtime in California, confirmed, into a 0G roll, up into a double up as you face towards Scream, towards another turn, an outer banked turn, which both give you a bunch of airtime, and into the first brake run. Then you hit the green lift hill, which actually goes slower than the blue lift hill because the ops are always... It's pretty much impossible to completely fully sync up the two trains on the lift hill for them to be synced up throughout the entire way up. So the green lift almost always goes slower than the blue lift, so that way the blue train, or the train on the blue track, can catch up. And then as you crest the green lift, you go extremely slow just so that way the blue train can get completely synced up. And then you go down the second drop. In this POV, you're dueling. You go through that same element again, then over the same element as well, and then into an even whippier version of the last high 5 element. Then you go down into a double down, and then into the Top Gun stall, which gives you some amazing hang time. Then into a airtime hill, 2 other double ups, and a airtime hill again, and into the brake run. Twisted Colossus is certainly an airtime-filled ride that California was just needing due to the amazingly large airtime lag. So, let's continue on with the video. Now, with that kind of layout on a coaster, you know that's a good coaster. That is a good RMC. And when it's dueling, it is a high, top-class RMC. The problem is, it doesn't duel that much. Like, I don't get it. Like, for some reason, it seems like the afternoon ride-ups, kudos to you, you all are a bunch of legends. Every single time I go to Magic Mountain, the afternoon to evening ride-ups are always the best ones. They're always setting those trains are like, pew, 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 like freaking guns. But the morning and noon ride-ups, those ones are always just very slow, and it rarely ever duels. You'd be lucky if you got a duel in the morning. I understand that, especially for the morning, it's earlier in the day, but I mean, like, they rotate shifts. It's a different operator. So, I don't know, maybe I just always get the exact same operators whenever I visit, but I just always think that I just think they should do better. Now, of course, I think Twisted Colossus is a 10 out of 10 ride, assuming it duels. If it does not duel, it's an 8 out of 10 ride, and it would be in my number 2 spot. Railblazer at Great America is better than Twisted Colossus if it's not dueling. If Twisted Colossus dueling, it's my number 1. So, I think that will be it for today's video. It's a little bit shorter than the last one, but I think that's because we're only dealing with one coaster here, not a group of coasters, and not a group of announcements. So, that's why this one may be a little bit short. So, I was Ray the Coaster Critic, you were the viewer, and I'll see you in the future. Goodbye.